There's a strange kind of war happening every time you sit down to do something that matters. It isn't loud. No one sees it, but you feel it, a tug of invisible gravity pulling you toward later. Your phone lights up. The chair suddenly feels too hard. Your brain whispers, maybe after one more scroll, one more snack, one more thought. This isn't just laziness. This is a human nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do: save energy, chase comfort, and avoid pain. 2,000 years ago, the Stoics saw this problem long before smartphones existed. Seneca called it the habit of delay. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that you will never have another life to live. Begin now. They were warning us about the same invisible trap we call procrastination today. But here's the twist the Stoics understood. The more you let comfort win, the more uncomfortable life becomes. The more you hide from effort, the heavier effort grows. Procrastination isn't rest. It's a thief disguised as rest. And every time you surrender to it, you teach your nervous system that escape is easier than action. Modern science now confirms what the Stoics intuited. Your brain's dopamine system is wired to reward novelty and effort. When you give in an easy pleasure, like scrolling, snacking, or endless planning, you get a quick spike of dopamine followed by a crash. That crash isn't neutral. It leaves you lower than before, trapped in what neuroscientists call a dopamine trough. The deeper the spike, the deeper the trough. And the deeper the trough, the harder it feels to climb out. Think of it like hiking into a valley. Every time you chase a quick hit of pleasure, you walk down another slope. Soon the hill behind you is too steep to climb, and the only thing that feels possible is staying put, waiting for some miraculous surge of motivation to arrive. But as the Stoics will remind you, waiting for motivation is like waiting for perfect weather before you build a house. You'll freeze before the sun ever shows. So what's the answer? How do you stop the cycle of delay without relying on some mythical lightning bolt of inspiration? Here's where the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius collides beautifully with modern neuroscience. To escape the trough, you don't wait for it to pass. You steepen it. You deliberately step into controlled discomfort, something safe but challenging enough to jolt your system awake. It might be a cold shower. It might be a set of push-ups. It might be a brisk walk in the biting morning air. The Stoics would call this voluntary hardship. Science calls it increasing limbic friction. Either way, the principle is the same. By doing something harder than the state you're in, you create a rebound effect that lifts dopamine back to baseline faster than passive waiting ever could. But let's slow down for a moment, because this is more than a clever brain hack. This is philosophy in motion. Epictetus taught that freedom isn't found in comfort. Freedom is found in the ability to choose your response to discomfort. When you deliberately embrace a cold shower, an intense burst of exercise, or any other safe hardship, you're training that inner muscle of choice. You're telling your nervous system, I decide what happens next, not my cravings. Every rep of discomfort is a rep of sovereignty. Notice something subtle here. The Stoics never chased pain for its own sake. They weren't masochists. Their goal wasn't suffer. It was to prove to themselves that suffering wasn't the master. The cold water isn't about punishment. It's about awakening. It shocks the mind out of inertia. It reminds you that action is always closer than it feels. Modern neuroscience backs this up. When you immerse yourself in cold water or push through a short, intense exercise, your body releases norepinephrine and gradually elevates dopamine over several hours. That chemical cocktail doesn't just wake you up. It sharpens focus, boosts mood, and, most importantly, breaks the loop of procrastination. Instead of waiting for motivation, you manufacture it. Let's bring this to the ground with an example. Imagine you're sitting at your desk, staring at a blank screen. You have a report to write, a proposal to draft, or a personal project you've been avoiding for weeks. Every cell in your body screams for distraction. You could tidy the room. You could check email. You could watch just one video. And part of you knows that none of those tasks are harder than the work you're avoiding. Otherwise, you wouldn't be tempted by them. This is the critical moment the Stoics trained for. Instead of bargaining with your brain, you stand up, you drop to the floor, and do a single set of push-ups. Or you walk to the bathroom and turn the shower to cold for 30 seconds. It's not heroic. It's not even long. But it's harder than sitting still. And because it's harder, it steepens a trough. Within minutes, the fog begins to lift. The task that felt impossible starts to look merely difficult. And difficult is something you can face. Marcus Aurelius would call this taking the obstacle and turning it into the way. The discomfort you chose becomes the very bridge to the action you were avoiding. But let's be honest, everything inside you will resist this. Your mind will whisper 1,000 reasons to stay put. It's too cold. It won't work. I'll start after one more scroll. This is where Stoicism becomes more than a clever trick. It becomes a practice of courage. Because courage isn't the absence of fear or reluctance. Courage is action despite them. The Stoics often use the metaphor of the archer. You can train your aim, you can steady your breath, but you cannot control the wind. Your job is to draw the bow and release the arrow anyway. In the same way, you cannot control when motivation will magically appear. Your job is to act, especially when you don't feel like it. And here's the unexpected gift. Every time you practice voluntary discomfort, you're not just breaking procrastination in the moment. You're rewiring your relationship with effort itself. Tasks that once felt terrifying start to feel neutral. Neutral tasks start to feel inviting. The mountain doesn't shrink, but your legs grow stronger. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress." Saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" That wasn't just a ritual for ancient Romans. It's the blueprint for modern freedom. When you train your body and mind to handle discomfort on purpose, the everyday frictions of life lose their power to paralyze you. So the next time procrastination creeps in, don't wait for inspiration. Don't bargain. Don't drown in guilt. Stand up. Find a safe discomfort. A cold shower. A set of push-ups. A brisk walk in the cold. Anything that sucks just enough to wake you up. Then return to your task while the chemicals of action are still flowing. That is Stoicism in action. That is science catching up to philosophy. And that is how you begin to win the quiet war inside. Part 2, understanding the science behind the Stoic strategy. Procrastination isn't a moral failure. It's chemistry. And the more you understand the way your brain works, the more power you have to use Stoic methods that actually fit the machinery of your mind. Let's start with dopamine, the chemical most people casually call the pleasure molecule. But that label misses the truth. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. It's about pursuit. It drives you toward a goal, keeps you moving toward rewards, and adjusts depending on how steep or flat the path feels. The Stoics didn't have microscopes, but they observed the same principle in human behavior. Epictetus would say that we suffer not from things themselves, but from our judgments about them. In modern terms, we suffer from the way our dopamine system interprets the climb. When you give yourself a quick hit, scrolling, sugar, mindless entertainment, you get a dopamine spike. But every spike is followed by a dip, a trough that's proportional to the size of the spike. The higher and faster the peak, the lower and longer crash. This is why after a binge of easy pleasure, you feel sluggish, restless, and strangely empty. Your nervous system is literally below baseline, waiting to climb back to normal. Here's the cruel twist. The lower you sink, the less energy you have to climb. Tasks that would normally feel mildly uncomfortable now feel unbearable. The valley deepens. And because the brain always seeks balance, you crave another quick hit to climb out, starting the cycle again. That's procrastination in chemical form. Now, here's where Stoicism shines. The Stoics believe that nature gave us everything we need to live with virtue and strength. Instead of fighting our biology, we work with it. If dopamine dips after a spike, then to rise again, you don't seek more pleasure. You embrace controlled discomfort. This is the genius of voluntary hardship. Imagine you're sitting in that trough. Motivation is gone. Your body feels heavy. Your mind keeps inventing small distractions. The average person will try one of three things. Wait it out, hoping motivation magically returns. Seek another spike. Checking social media, grabbing a snack. Do a productive but easy task. cleaning the desk, rearranging files. All three keep you in the valley. Waiting is slow. Seeking pleasure deepens a trough. Busy work flatters your ego but leaves the real work untouched. The Stoic way is different. You do something deliberately harder than the discomfort you feel. Cold shower, short sprint, one intense set of push-ups. Even something as simple as holding a deep wall sit until your thighs burn. Why? Because this creates a steeper slope in the valley. It floods your body with norepinephrine and slowly raises dopamine back to baseline. It tells your nervous system, the state we're in is not safe. We must act. In modern neuroscience, this is called activating the locus coeruleus, the part of the brain that regulates alertness and action. Think about that. Marcus Aurelius, writing an attempt between battles, practiced a method we now explain with neural circuits. He exposed himself to cold, to hunger, to the rigors of military life not because he loved pain, but because he knew discomfort awakens clarity. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes a way." That's not poetry. It's a map of the dopamine system. But what if you can't even begin? What if the cold shower sounds impossible, the push-ups too far away, the walk too exhausting? Start smaller. Stoicism isn't about heroics. It's about increments of courage. You can begin with something as minor as standing up and holding your breath for 10 seconds, or splashing cold water on your face, or tightening every muscle in your body for 30 seconds. These micro hardships work because your brain doesn't measure courage in meters or miles. It measures contrast. Any act that's harder than nothing jolts you upward. Let's talk about limbic friction, a term that might sound technical, but is exactly what you feel. It's the resistance between your emotional brain, the limbic system, and your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex. Sometimes you need to energize yourself to overcome fatigue. Other times you need to calm yourself to overcome anxiety. Either way, the friction is the gap between intention and action. Stoicism trains you to work with this friction instead of fearing it. Every time you choose discomfort on purpose, you're lowering the mental cost of future action. Your brain learns hard things are safe, hard things are possible. What once felt like climbing a cliff now feels like stepping onto a trail. Consider a practical daily ritual inspired by both science and Stoicism. Morning reset routine. Cold exposure, 30 to 60 seconds. Shower or face splash. Immediate dopamine lift. Sharpens focus for hours. Micro exercise burst, 1 to 3 minutes. Jumping jacks, push-ups, sprint in place. Signals your body that energy is required. Stoic reflection, 2 minutes. Write one line. What depends on me today? What is not? This separates action from worry. This isn't a punishment. It's a training ground. You're rehearsing the art of action. So when real resistance shows up, deadlines, conflicts, temptations, you already have a muscle. Now, let's return to the heart of Stoic philosophy. The goal isn't simply to hack your brain. The goal is character. Seneca warned that pleasure chains the soul. Epictetus taught that freedom belongs only to those who master themselves. By practicing voluntary discomfort, you're not just escaping procrastination for a day, you're forging a habit of inner freedom. And freedom is a real reward. Because once you stop fearing discomfort, no deadline owns you. No craving controls you. No mood decides your fate. You act because it is right to act, not because you feel like it. Let's test this in a real scenario. You have a massive project due in 2 days. The old pattern would be to wait until panic floods your system, using anxiety as a last-minute motivator. The Stoic pattern is different. You notice the first flicker of resistance. You stand, you take a cold shower, or you hold a plank until your body trembles. You come back to the desk while dopamine is rising, and you start, maybe only for 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes become 30. The 30 become a finished draft. You finish not because fear chased you, but because reason led you. This is the fusion of philosophy and biology. A Roman emperor and a modern neuroscientist would both nod in agreement. But let's be honest. Some days you will still fail. You will give in to comfort, miss the cold shower, skip the plank, waste the hours. Here, too, Stoicism provides the antidote. Marcus wrote, "When you wake up unwilling, have this thought ready: I am rising to do the work of a human being." Notice the gentleness. He doesn't say, despise yourself. He says, remember your purpose. Failure is not a verdict. It's a cue to begin again. That's the hidden gift of this practice. Every cold shower, every brief exercise, every small act of discomfort is also an act of forgiveness. You're not punishing yourself for procrastinating. You're giving yourself a door back to action. If this message stirred something in you, don't just close the video and move on. Take one small action right now. Drop a comment sharing the discomfort you'll embrace today, or simply write, "I begin." Your words will inspire someone else to rise with you. And if you found value here, give this video a like, share it with someone who's stuck in procrastination, and subscribe for more Stoic lessons to sharpen your mind and strengthen your will. Remember, action is a cure. Courage is the path. Today is the day.